So this is a update for the full moon in Aquarius that will be happening around 3 a.m. on the West Coast on August 26th. About 3 a.m. West Coast time, August 26th, we have the full moon in Aquarius. And so that'll be, let me get this a little bit better here. Okay, so that'll be a full moon that's opposite the sun in Libra. I'm sorry, the sun in Leo. So we have this full moon, which comes into play every month. We have a full moon and we have new moons. We have these lunation cycles, and they keep us aligned with these sort of monthly and bi-weekly and monthly cycles. They're extremely important, and these 2-week cycles keep us aligned. Wherever the sun goes, when sun and moon come together, it starts the cycle. Then opposite that, we have the full moon that is trying to harmonize the cycle. Now, this full moon happening in Aquarius is actually the full moon that happened after the new moon that was in Cancer. So the new moon in Cancer a couple weeks ago was actually the solar eclipse in Cancer in Nakshatra. Now 2 weeks later, we have the full moon that's actually in Aquarius. So it didn't come opposite Cancer. It came opposite Leo because the sun had moved into Leo. So there's a whole kind of, there's a way to look at these lunation cycles. Sometimes the full moon comes before the new moon, but either way, we really mark the lunation cycles we really break out the year into like 12 to 24 2-week cycles, or I'm sorry, like 24 2-week cycles, 12 30-day cycles, this way. And so, based on these new moons and full moons. So we have this full moon in Aquarius. Now, the sun is in Leo. I'm not going to be showing the chart here, just because I want to try this live video on just the YouTube, back end. So, but the chart actually has the sun in Leo, the moon in Aquarius, and the full moon is happening at about 9 degrees. And it's early Sunday morning Pacific time. So with the sun in Leo, it's very much about our individuality. This is the sort of, focal point right now. Sun in Leo, we're very much about our inner strength, personal power, wanting to share the light, first to connect with the light, then share that light with as many as we can. And that's a real source of power and dominion in our life. So the opposite point of Leo is Aquarius, again, where we want to share that light with others. You can even look at it as Leo is the sign of the king or the kingdom, or even things like governments. And Aquarius has to do with the people, the population, the populace, so to speak. And that is a big theme of contrast in this full moon, where the sun is our inner strength and power. We can keep it to ourselves. We can then try to be a king and dominate everybody, or get into battles with other people, or get into struggles. Often power struggles, when you get two people that have a really powerful sun or prominent sun, many times they can literally get into power struggles because my son, your son, and we mistake that power to be something that's individual and localized. Like I'm this individual being with this limited power, this localized entity, rather than a universal being. So again, this is how the Aquarius principle helps to bring the soul to a higher point of evolution and a higher point of awareness. Because when we're under the illusion that we're just this limited being, then we have this limited power, we have this limited ability to impact, and then we wind up getting into struggles with other limited beings and their limited ability to impact and all of that. So all this limitation is really sort of part and parcel to the smaller, lower forms of Leo, whereas the more elevated concept of Leo is that like a divine father, right? Like a good father or even a good king doesn't keep all the power to himself. He shares it. He shares it with the kingdom. He shares it with the family. The father sacrifices for his family. Even if he might have to do things that he hates, he does them because he wants what's best for the family, which is not always what's best for himself. But the more evolved qualities of Leo relate to that sacrifice for the thing that we love. And this shows a connection to our inner power and our integrity that we then share and create a nice kingdom around us where the citizens are happy and we're happy. And again, that higher vibration has to start with a connection to our true self and a certain level of integrity. And integrity in this sense means that you're being congruent with your, with your identity. You're not behaving this way for this group of people, behaving that way for that group of people, right? That's a lack of integrity. That's a identity that's confused. Well, I have to act this way for these people. I have to act this way for these people. When that happens, we tend to dominate those that we have power over, that we have control over, and then we feel dominated by those who have power over us, and we kind of adapt and phony behavior and all this kind of behavior level that's disconnected from integrity. When someone really has integrity, you can recognize it because they're pretty much congruent, their energies all the time. Now, it's not like they would treat, some great figure and some smaller figure exactly the same, but there's a sense of truth behind their behavior. Literally, they're not phony. They're not trying to get people to like them. They're not, but at the same time, they're not aggressive. There's just a real, there's a realism. You get the truth. They're honest and they're forthright and there's authenticity. So that's a powerful quality of Leo, which is where the sun is. Then opposite that, when someone comes from a place of authenticity in that Leo energy, then usually large groups of people and the masses or whatever, or their family or whatever it is, the culture that they're involved in, their work, they're usually well received because there's integrity, there's honesty, there's generosity. There's not struggling and power struggles and trying to define ourselves by how many people we can dominate and we can lord over. Those are the lower qualities of Leo, because that's also what leads to that sort of behavior and false identity, where if I don't really know myself, then I'm going to then on the level of ego and the smaller self, I'll feel victorious when I can boss you around. But then I'll feel, mistreated by those who boss me around. And I'll, take advantage of situations that's going to make me look good and then try to avoid the ones that aren't going to make me look good, right? When there's integrity and there's truth and there's a sense of vision and purpose and one is doing what they're supposed to be doing, all that stuff pretty much disappears. You don't dominate the people you have power over. You also don't avoid situations where you might not look good. You're willing to kind of swallow it and suck it up. And that includes things like, social pressure, for example. You don't feel lorded over by people who might criticize you. You're like, all right, I can take that. You might, let's say, even like publicly, especially these days, there's so much like public shaming and people come after you and people try to bully you and people try to give you a hard time. If you know yourself and there's integrity and honesty and you're secure in yourself, you don't need to fight back at every person who wants to fight with you, right? God knows if you do anything online, that's a big thing, right? You let that stuff roll off you because you know yourself better and there's integrity. So you learn how to choose your battles wisely, and you're also focused on a larger picture, on a larger outcome than just winning battles with people and all that stuff that's not worth it anyway. So this is where the Leo Aquarius harmonizes, right? So the sun is in Leo, which has that integrity, and now we have the full moon in Aquarius, which is literally our desire to connect that with the public, with groups, with larger themes and larger causes that we want to serve. That's the Aquarius harmonizing point in relationship to Leo and the ratio of the priority in this cycle. Because you'll often hear astrologers will say, well, it's the full moon. It's the start of a blah, blah, blah. It's a great time to start blah, 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 blah. No. Actually, you start on the new moon. The new moon is when the cycle starts. The full moon is the halfway point. We're halfway in that cycle. Now, the cycle started, like I said, with the moon in Cancer, so that's a little bit different. But with the moon in Leo, we're still analyzing the full moon as a mirroring, contrasting point to the sun in Leo. And this is something that is important to understand with these cycles. And one second. So I also just posted a link there. A lot of people, in fact, earlier today, I just made a video that interprets this full moon for each of the 12 signs, including yours. For my members, there are people who pay, it's not much, it's about $1 a day, to get ongoing daily forecasts where I analyze the moon cycle, the sign that the moon is in, plus all the other factors of the Panchanga, the Tithi, the lunar phase, the Nakshatra, which I'm going to talk about the Nakshatra here in a minute, which is Shatabishak. If you never tried it, you can try it for only 50 cents for 2 weeks, and then if you want to continue, it's only $39.95 a month. But you can discontinue anytime. But you can try it out for 2 weeks, and you also get 8 hours of classes on all kinds of different subjects. That's also really fantastic at the site, so you can click it there. So I'm not answering questions at the moment. I'm just going to do this forecast. People are asking me if I live in San Diego, if I do public classes and whatnot. So people should go to my website. That's where all my classes are. Okay, 1,000 ways to stay in touch with me. Okay, you'll see all the classes that I do. So this full moon is in Shatabishak Nakshatra, which literally is the part of Aquarius that is related to the need to find alternative solutions and healing and alternative means of self-knowledge. Now, Shatabishak literally means 100 physicians or 100 doctors. And it's because we will find a spiritual solution that can only be fixed, or I'm sorry, we find an illness and an ailment and a sort of spiritual personal crisis that can only be remedied by something metaphysical, right? And so we need to then connect with the 100 physicians. It's almost like the 100 metaphysicians, because it's a very high principle. It's a very high and tall order that we seek in order to heal our soul. And Shatabishak is that part of Aquarius where we find an alternative solution to life's problems. We find a sort of spiritual dilemma, and we want to, and we need to figure it out on a higher level. And then we want to share it. We're all healers in our own way in the thing that we've discovered. So this is that quality of Aquarius that wants to share that personal medicine that you've learned. Everyone has learned something. We've all learned to heal some part of ourselves in some way, and we want to share it. We want others to know about it. So not only do we seek 100 doctors and then wind up finding our own healing solution, but then we become a healer and we want to heal others, right? Again, this is the part of, this is part of Aquarius, the sign Aquarius, as it's always been practiced in Vedic astrology. The signs are sidereal and the nakshatras are the different portions of the signs, as it's always been done in Vedic astrology for thousands of years. So this is that section of Aquarius from about 640 Aquarius to 20, I believe that's the range. That's the section called Shatabishak, and the deity is Varuna, who is one of the Rig Veda deities, responsible for the separation of day into night and the seasons and the sort of dharmic and cosmic laws of the universe. And so this is where we really start to connect with higher dharmic principles in order to sort of transcend and leave the earth. I did a video earlier this week where I talked about the transit of the sun through this section of the zodiac this week from Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, which shows the soul finding higher purpose and meaning, then focusing on that commitment, then connecting that with culture and people and the rest of the world, and then leaving and surrendering in the sign of Pisces. So this is that section where we really look toward, where we face that spiritual crisis and dilemma and need to find solutions. So we look everywhere. We look to 100 doctors, 100 physicians, and eventually we find the truth in a dharmic truth, in cosmic law, and it represents the upper atmosphere and the section of the sky where there's this kinetic energy ripe for spiritual potential. So it's that sort of genius element as well that we all have. And again, once we get clear about our identity and who we are, and we stop turning everything into some sort of narcissistic pursuit, we start to connect things to others, and then all of it starts to unlock higher dimensions of consciousness and genius, particularly as it relates to large groups of people. We stop being, seeing everything through the matrix of our own happiness. We start to connect with something more universal and metaphysical. In many ways, the real, the first nakshatra and the nakshatra that really brings a lot of that out is Shatabishak. It's why when people have planets in that nakshatra, they're often very interested in spiritual healing, metaphysical healing. I can mean astrology. I've often seen Ayurveda, or just the energy as energy moves through creation, comes down from heaven and moves through creation in that wise and karmic and dharmic way, especially as that leads to great spiritual insight and healing. That's deeply implicated in Shatabishak Nakshatra. So all of these are qualities of this full moon. And again, this is the full moon, which is the mind, consciousness, the heart, the part of us that wants to dissolve all of the apparent incongruencies in life, that wants to dissolve the separation that we have, because we feel very fragmented as we live through our ego, as we live through our sense of separateness. We're in this world of likes and dislikes, desires, attractions and aversions. I like this, I don't like that. Like I was just explaining, once we get to a place of deeper integrity, we also stop reacting to life in this kind of fragmented, polarized way. Use the example of the father. He's not motivated. Now, he's still a person, but when he's caring for his family or his children, he's not motivated by what's going to make him feel good. He's motivated by what's the best thing I can do for my family. It might be difficult. Maybe the hardest thing is the best thing I can do, but that's what he'll do. The hardest thing is I work at this job for 20 years so my kid can go to college. Certainly not the easiest thing, certainly not the thing that he might enjoy the most every day, but it's the right thing, it's the best thing, and he's willing to sacrifice for that. So this, these kinds of things, once we find that in our life, not just for our children, but through our work and through other things, ultimately through our spiritual practices and through our gurus and whatnot, where everything in life becomes that, because many times the thing we know is right is not the easiest thing to do. In fact, usually it's not. Usually the right thing is the hardest thing. The right thing takes effort, patience. We usually have to resist some primal urge to do something, either get something or avoid something or something. We're a bundle of urges on the emotional level, which is what the moon is. But again, deeper than that, once we go deeper than the surface of just reacting and we connect with more integrity, then we're also connecting with our heart on a level that's deeper than just emotions and reactive, animalistic urges and impulses that keep us stuck in this emotional confusion. We go deeper and then we connect to something that's much more unified, a unifying consciousness that's trying to dissolve all those boundaries, that's trying to dissolve all of that going on, trying to sink deeper into the truth of that. So that's the power of all full moons. Full moons give us that power to sink deeper into something that's very real and something that is much more eternal than just that swoon of emotion that tends to eclipse us and sort of knock us off base. And so this is a lot of our work in this lifetime, is to connect with greater integrity, which literally comes from the sun, that personal integrity, which is the ability to also sacrifice, not just act through attractions and aversions, not just do what's easy, but to do what's right, connected to our vision, connected to the truth of who we really are beyond just this limited identity that gets into struggles. That, as the framework for the rest of our life, then filters into the moon, then impacts the moon, which is the mind and consciousness. So then, again, we're not so emotionally knocked off balance. When someone shows up and, hassles us online or gives us a dirty look or does some stupid thing, we don't feel like we have to react to everything. We don't have to get so triggered and, avoid things that are difficult. We do what we know is right. And many times that's not the easiest thing, particularly when you get into spiritual practices and sacrificing and working hard and things like, well, if you want to really grow spiritually, you need to get up a little early, do your spiritual practice, stay disciplined. That's never easy for any of us, particularly in this world of distraction. So it's been made a little easier these days because we have that powerful Mars K2 conjunction in Capricorn. The Mars K2 conjunction is also still really prominent right now. And it's, when you look up in the sky, you could see that Mars really bright. It's still close to the moon, reasonably close to the moon. I was playing tennis the other night, right on that Mars K2 conjunction. It's big, right next to the moon. So Mars K2 in Capricorn is still, bringing a lot of discipline and energy and fire. It's a good time to be purifying your mind and emotions and anger and channeling it into greater spiritual discipline and awareness. We also have debilitated Venus. Venus is in Virgo, which shows a willingness to also forego some personal pleasure and desire. But, when Venus is in Virgo, we can also be a little bit sort of grouchy and crabby about others, not feel appreciated, not feel respected, kind of look for disrespect, and, consequently, again, be sort of cranky with others. We need to be careful of that. But it also has some benefit in that we don't feel the need to, eat the chocolate or do this sort of thing. We can control our senses a little better when Venus is debilitated. At least that's a big potential. Because the senses don't feel as good. It also might make us indulgent and weak, though. It really depends. But Venus is pretty close to going into Libra. In a week or so, it'll be in Libra. And we still have Rahu Mercury in Cancer. Mercury is now moving forward again. It is literally moving forward. It's not so backed up and kind of watery like it has been for a while. It was quite a Mercury retrograde phase that we went through for about a month. It's kind of hard to get out of the fog of that for a while because it was in Cancer also, which is not a very clear sign for Mercury. It's very watery. So this is why it's been kind of a strange summer of like confusion and these eclipse cycles that drag out for a long time. Mercury very close to it. Mars aspecting Mercury, a really powerful retrograde Mars and K2 aspecting retrograde Mercury in Cancer. Both. So there was a lot of Mars and not a lot of Mercury happening for a while, which means a lot of Mars, which is wanting to do something and get somewhere, but then Mercury, which is like, but I can't really figure out how to can't get my thoughts together. Especially with Mars aspecting Mercury. So we were going through that for quite a while. And again, some of that is really is sort of waning now for sure, especially since Mercury's moving forward. It's going to start moving pretty quick here soon. And Jupiter is also direct. For a while we had Jupiter retrograde, Mars retrograde, Saturn retrograde. So Jupiter is also direct. He's on his way to going into Scorpio here quite soon. I believe it's end of September, early October. Not too far away, right? It's about a month. Incredible 2018 is going so fast. But the main thing to say is that this is the forecast for that full moon. And again, I just did the forecast for all the members. So I just did it. So when you join this link, it's also called the Astrology Training Lab. I'll type that in here as well. People always ask me, when you join the Astrology Training Lab, you get you'll get the forecast for your sign right now. It's only 50 cents to try it, and you'll be sent a notice through your email to join the Facebook group and get the video that describes this full moon in Aquarius for your sign. And then there's also, again, you also get 8 hours of amazing classes when you join the training lab. Literally, long 3-hour lecture that I did on astrology, neuroscience, and quantum physics. This was awesome. People paid like $100 to get that lecture. You just get it for free. For 50 cents as part of it. It's 8 hours of classes that you get. That 3-hour lecture on quantum physics, neuroscience, and Vedic astrology, where I talk about karma and dharma and the relationship to your brain and how your brain creates, how the chart shows your brain and all these cognitive biases and neuroscientific qualities through the 3 brains, and then how we create the world in the quantum level as a result. Then you also get a very powerful chart reading template that I give to my advanced students. Really benefits everyone. This very advanced chart reading template. And then you also get 4.5 hours of classes that I did at a conference about 7 years ago now, where 4.5 hours on planets and their meaning, the cosmic nature of how spirit takes form through sacred geometry, and then then planets as ruling houses, and then bringing in the signs and some case studies. So this is a great deal, and a lot of people are members. There's a lot of people that is, aside from that, you see the video for how this affects your sign, how this full moon affects your sign, but then you also get daily forecasts. Literally every day I do a forecast based on the sign that the moon is in, which would be Aquarius, then the Nakshatra, which would be Shatabishak, then the Tithi, which is the lunar phase. The Tithis that we know are the full moon and the new moon, but there's also first Tithi, second Tithi. There are 15 lunar days in the month. Each one is different. Then there's also the Lord of the Day, which is the Vara Lord, like today's ruled by Venus because it's Friday. And then there's also other special things like when there are conjunctions and aspects and other things that are brought into the daily forecasts. So it's very easy, and people find and I will say it's also the best way to learn astrology is to stay up with it every day and track it every day and see how these forecasts and how these things show you the prevailing energy of each day. So there's that for you if you want. But besides that, I just wanted to make this forecast for the full moon in Aquarius, Shatabishak Nakshatra. And we're going to start feeling some of this heavy energy lighten up because it's been so heavy. The eclipse cycle is now starting to wane. We had a long eclipse cycle because there was 2 partial solar eclipses, and those partial solar eclipses really predominate, have been very dominant this summer. And so that's starting to wane because we just had the last eclipse, was that last solar eclipse, but we're still kind of in the jaws of that eclipse a little bit. But one of the ways you can see that we've moved out of it is the sun has left. It's not in the same sign with Rahu anymore. This full moon is not in the same sign with Ketu. So again, what happens again when you start studying even a little bit is you start noticing and understanding why we have these eclipses and why Rahu and Ketu and are problematic, or what the intensity is around them, and what again, we just passed through an eclipse cycle. So notice what happened. Notice how it's been really stressful, but also notice all the breakthroughs that you had or could have had, especially if you understand what's going on, and especially if you understand where these things are falling in your chart. And again, this is why I do the forecasts, because when we don't know any of this, then we're just, everything stays at this kind of mundane level, and we're kind of like a beggar, like this beggar, like, oh, what's going to happen? Oh my God, difficult. When is it going to stop? Oh, Rahu, oh, eclipses, oh, Saturn, Mars, Ketu, and just like a baby. There's no reason for that. All of it is spiritual power, spiritual potential that you either understand and are in harmony with, or you're not. And when you're not, you're just, it's just ignorance, and there's no reason for it. So again, one of the best ways, and again, it's not a matter of if you join my, the training lab, or, if you get the daily forecast or not, but I'm just saying as a matter of your understanding of life, you want to be doing that. You want to be looking every day at where the planets are moving, what these things are, what these planet signs, nakshatras, lunar phases. And I'll tell you, the students of mine that have excelled the most, without a doubt, stay up with this every day. This is why, as part of my certification course, I decided to give students access to the training lab. I decided to give them 6-month access to that as one of the bonuses, because I know how much it helps students to stay connected with the daily forecast. And they get to read my forecast every day. They also get to stay in touch with me every day like that. And, miracles happen when you stay connected to it. People who don't, people who want to be astrology skeptics, they always act like astrologers are just kind of creating connections where they don't exist, right? But this is when people aren't tracking it. When you track it, you realize that's not what's happening at all. You realize there's synchronicity everywhere all the time. It's constantly happening, even on a meta level, on a global level, but also certainly on a personal level. Like when you start understanding when the moon goes over one of your planets, there'll be something that sensitizes you that day to that thing, particularly the exact degrees, the closer the exact degrees get, and this and that kind of stuff, right? And all of those things, as you start to notice it, like if you don't notice it, then you don't notice it. But once you start to notice it, then astrology starts to really open up, and it becomes, it stops being some weird thing up there that you kind of believe in, but you're also kind of terrified of, and you're like, oh, what is all this? That's not what it is. Then you start to see why I say things like it's all benevolent energy. None of it is out to get you or scary or even anything separate from you. It's all simply how you, who is also this illusion, like I talked about in this video, like I talk about these things all the time, and people still, oh, that's so great. So what about me? And it's like, you are not this separate creature walking around. I know I say it all the time, but it's true. Remember, when I say you, I'm not saying you, this separate creature. I'm saying you, that is the planets and the astrology and the cosmic energy is not separate from you. You think it is. That's why they're suffering. It's simply just reconnecting to that part, that nature that you are. And again, knowing these things brings integrity to everything. And you see, especially if you spend time around Satgurus and great beings and notice what they do, everything they do, like it's what's miraculous, like to spend time around, literally like great beings. They're called Satgurus. Like my Satguru is Amma the Hugging Saint. It's another great Satguru being that I've been spending a lot of time with, Sri Ravi Shankar Gurudev. And every time you're around them, especially, you see how they completely and perfectly embody like everything in the astrology. I see it, and my students see it all the time. I just spent time with Sri Gurudev on the Guru Purnima, and I don't remember what it was exactly, but in the satsang, it was on the eclipse, the lunar eclipse that happened in Capricorn, right on Mars. But he had a talk, and his satsang was completely, everything was about that symbology. I think it was about listening and hearing. It was in Shravana Nakshatra. The whole satsang was about that. And I mean, if you don't know, then you don't know. But I mean, these beings can talk about anything. If it would have been in this nakshatra, or maybe on his full moon in Shatabishak, he'll be talking about spiritual healing and 100 doctors and physicians and all that stuff. So I see the question about planets, colors, remedies, mantras. Maybe, honestly, it doesn't really interest me that much, to be honest with you. So we'll see. It's a pretty simple subject. You can Google planets, mantras, remedies, colors, bring it up. It's a list. So anyway, those qualities of life are always happening, right? And because great beings like Satgurus are always dialed into it, when you get around them, they're always, because literally they're in harmony with the universe. They're in harmony with the prevailing energy of the day. Always. So many times around Amma, like every time she speaks, especially like with nakshatras or something that's even smaller in time, like she'll say something that I know is really specific to like one of the stories connected to a nakshatra. Like maybe she'll talk about Lord Indra or something where she has to talk about Indra forever. I'll look up and it'll be like, there we go. The Ascendant was Jeshta when she started talking about that. And Lord Indra rules Jeshta. or she'll be talking about this facet of this story. And because I know these things and I'm dialed into the astrology, I'll know, oh, that's why she said that. And again, it might seem random. It's completely not random when you're paying attention, just like anything else. Just like anything else that you love that you pay attention to. Right? For example, you'll hear people, one of the main things people pay attention to is something like their children, right? Because people love their children. They go on and on about their children because they love their children so much. They can see, they know all of these synchronicities between everything their children do. And oh yeah, the child did that before. And they'll remember and be aware of every kind of possible connection, synchronicity that alerts them to the fact that their children are the most amazing children who've ever been born. No, I'm sort of joking, but I'm saying that the amount of devotion and love and care that goes into that is to someone who's not paying attention, you'll never notice what the parent notices about the child or anything that we love so much. So again, this is how you learn astrology, because you love it so much. You know, the reason I'm good at it is because I love it. To me, it's endlessly fascinating, incredibly beautiful. It's this connection that's always happening. And we're never not that. We're never not in dialogue with it. It's just a matter of whether we're aware of it or not. This is why my focus is on teaching. And I like doing these updates. And I love all of it. But I mainly love teaching and watch people start to get that and go, wow, that's really true. It really is true. We're not just this limited being. And the way you understand your universal self and your universal being is through studying astrology. And see, and honestly, I think a lot of astrologers also kind of miss that point when they talk about it. In fact, I know it. Again, it's not to disparage any astrologers because they do great work. But I know, especially because I've spent a lot of time in yoga ashrams, especially in yoga centers and swamis and different gurus. And I mean, even spending time around Amma and what a lot of people say about it, not her, but what a lot of people's prevailing ideas around astrology is even this like, well, there's your astrology, what are you going to do about your astrology? Just pray to your guru. And like it's all separate. It's like, you're just missing it. That ain't the astrology. When you understand it, you're understanding what's happening with you. You're understanding what the guru is showing in the astrology. Like the challenges that the guru throw up in front of you is the astrology. That is what it is. And that's the path. That's what you're going to be dealing with. You're not going to do anything outside of it until you're completely liberated 100%. Until you achieve nirvikalpa samadhi, where the entire ego is burnt up in the soul of the Atman, which you ain't there and you ain't close. You got a lot of work to do. Until it's that, your karmas and burning your karmas and your spiritual practice and your relationship with all that is playing out through the qualities of the planets. It's just a matter if you're aware of it, what those things are, and also and understanding truthfully what those energies are. And there's no avoiding it ever. You will not avoid it. You're not going to fix it with a mantra, with a gem, with this. You're not going to do any of that. Now, it doesn't mean those things have no effect, but they have as much effect as you empower, as you understand. So a gem or a mantra or a remedy, it has power, but it only has as much power as your level of awareness and consciousness of who you are and what that is. If a gem or a mantra, well, mantras are different because they actually shift consciousness because you're saying it and you're purifying the Akashic field. Gems can also help, but gems are also often used as a crutch. But they're not. But if they really empower you and really connect you with your sadhana and all that, then they're fine. All of it's fine. But all of it only has the effect of your level of consciousness and awareness, and it's all playing out through the planets. If Saturn is coming and doing something, making a mantra to Saturn or a thing to Saturn is not going to make Saturn go away. It's not going to shut up Saturn. It's not going to defeat Saturn. It doesn't happen. At best, it's going to help you understand exactly what that intensity is of Saturn that you have such a hard time with through your ego. That's what it does. And that's a great thing. But that's the way remedies need to be approached. And let's be honest, most of you know that's not the way it's approached usually. It's do this remedy to prevent this thing, to stop this bad thing from getting you. If you do this, it won't get you. It's going to get you. It's already got you. That's why planets are called grahas. They grab you, they grip, they got you. That's why you're here. And no, contrary to New Age philosophy, your soul didn't choose it. Your soul chose to blah, blah, blah. If you don't remember choosing it, you didn't choose it. That's the most effective way to think through all that. The grahas are the facets of Lord Vishnu. God has got you, God in a higher sense that you don't understand, through the grip of the grahas. They grab you through gunas and elements and say, here's what you need to learn, and here's when the lessons are going to unfold. Sometimes they'll be easy, sometimes they'll be difficult, but these are the lessons. And so remedies and mantras and all of those things help us understand things that are very hard to integrate at times. Death is very hard. That's why Saturn is hard. It's only hard for the ego. Right? So went off on that a little bit, and went off on it because, you know, it's a beautiful thing to watch this unfold every day. So that's why I make available things like I'll post a link again. That's why I make available things like 50 cents to get 8 hours of classes, daily forecasts for 2 weeks. It's a pretty good deal. And so if you're interested in looking at that and also how this will affect your sign, this full moon, go ahead and take me up on that. And again, you can do it for 2 weeks, cancel before the first charge, and that'll be it. If you don't have enough interest to continue, I put it out there. It's very popular. There's, I don't know, 100, 150 people ongoing that are members. So that'll be good if you're interested as well. And so I hope you have a good full moon. Full moons are ripe for meditation and connecting your limited consciousness with the unlimited self. So good luck with that as well.